so much for being here today. We are here to share with you the webinar Champions of Engagement, Real Stories from Yellowdig Communities. Today is all about real stories from educators who've seen Yellowdig transform how students connect to each other. So before we start the matter, all that I'm going to share with you is to meet our speakers. So each of you can introduce yourself. Let's go with ladies first. Dr. Smith, it's your turn.
Thank you so much. My name is Jane Smith. I'm a research professor in coastal engineering at the University of Florida.
Thank you. It's great to have you here, Dr. Smith. Dr. Howell, can you go next, please?
Yes, my name is Mark Howell. I'm a professor of communications at Northwestern Michigan College in Traverse City, Michigan.
Thank you. And Dr. Kerr, last but not least.
So my name is Kevin Carr. I teach Japanese art history at the University of Michigan in Ann Arbor and teach with Yellowdig in some classes, 150 people or so.
This is great. Thank you for this. So before we enter into the matter, I wanted to share with you what's going on. So student engagement is a challenge and a priority both at once. So the most common issues that we've seen in higher education is that there's a lot of passive discussion boards. Instructions grading is overloading, and there's a difficult for sustaining interaction. So what we're going to do today, our goals is to hear authentic stories from faculty using Yellowdig, discover practical strategies that boost participation and belonging, learn time-saving approaches from instructors' interaction, and explore sustainable engagement that lasts. So as I mentioned before, this is going to be a conversation. I just want you all to share your experiences and all the things that have worked for you and may have worked as well for the people that we have here in the webinar. So without any further to say, let's go first. Explaining what Yellowdig is and what Yellowdig is not. So Yellowdig is not a post one, respond twice platform, a forced participation tool, an assessment of one-off assignment. What we are a place to build real communities where students feel heard and supported, a window into our students' lives and a safe space to learn from each other, an opportunity to increase student agency and belonging, a stress-free social environment that fosters collaboration, networking, and deeper learning. Why this is important is because with all what we're going to hear today, we want to make this difference very clear for you to have a better perspective of what we're going to hear. So here is the first question. So what's one strategy that you've used that helps inspire participation? And have you seen belonging or peer-to-peer connection grown in surprising ways while using Yellowdig? So this time we're going to go in different orders. So if you could just go first, Dr. Carr.
Okay, so there's a lot of different things I think that one could say, but I think that a surprising way that I've seen connection is when students aren't talking about obviously something obviously related to course content, but it creates a great conversation and the students feel more a part of a community, and that sense of community helps them want to learn more and gives them just a better sort of basis for being able to engage with the other course materials.
I love that. Dr. Jane, how about you?
So I just started using Yellowdig in the spring semester in a class called Engineering with Nature and Coastal Resilience. And so we started actually mid-semester, and the students just grabbed onto it right away. And they used it to connect what we learned in class to some of their real life experiences. Some of them are out working, some of them have had internships. So they were able to take the concepts we had in class and then really expound on what they see, how they actually experience some of the types of projects that we talk about. And then they started asking each other questions and just really expanded even more than I could have read it all. It was just really exciting to see how they built on each other's questions. I teach virtually, and so it was a way for the students to connect when they can't really do it in the virtual environment during class time. So I think that was really exciting for them to get to know each other and build on their real life experiences.
That's amazing. And that's great because that's what we're looking for, to have real connections and interaction between our students. Dr. Howell, how about you?
Well, I can piggyback off of what both Jane and Kevin mentioned here. I teach primarily online and have anywhere from 100 to 120 students a semester. And Yellowdig has made it possible for the students to interact with one another, actually sort of apart from course content. I will post course content and I'll ask questions, or I'll have the students use Yellowdig to suggest ideas for paper topics or research projects. And then I pretty much just have to get out of the way, because the interaction that they get through Yellowdig, not just in terms of talking about assignments or talking about projects, but then sort of as that trickles down into people who know each other. Either they went to high school together, or they live in the same town, or they know the same people. And suddenly it becomes this organic community where I'm just a bystander. I'm a casual participant. I might jump in, but the students kind of take it and go. And that's a marvelous thing, because online classes before Yellowdig were really painful, I think, for the students and the instructors, because there was that sort of expectation. You're going to post a journal entry, you're going to respond to, and then the instructor gets inundated with all of this kind of, I agree, ditto, me too, and you're going through and just kind of throwing grades at sort of empty work. And Yellowdig has changed all of that in terms of student interaction and student engagement.
That
Adding to
is
what
awesome.
I was going to add
Yeah,
something to
Jen.
what Mark said, is that my students also connected from a professional perspective in terms of asking questions about taking professional engineering exam. How did you prepare for it? What do you do in your job? How can I apply to that company? And so they started to have those connections of, topics that we don't talk about directly in class, but really influence their future careers.
That is incredible. And it's really important because when we are going into class, even virtually, what we're looking is to have a social presence, a connection, to get to know who are we studying with, and to enrich our knowledge with what others have lived and experienced, and to see from the different perspectives what we're learning. So this is amazing. And it's incredible that we can do this online while using Yellowdig. So let's go with our next question. I know that one of the biggest issues that more instructors have is the thing of grading, and have to read each post that is being said. So how has Yellowdig changed the way you approach on grading, and how you found yourself shifting from instructor as grader to more a community member or a guide? Let's go first with Dr. Carr.
So I find when I teach, so my classes are primarily in person, and I find that's very frustrating to me when I have a class of more than, say, 20 or 30 students. I usually don't know all their names, and I don't know who they are. I don't even have a sense for who they are. And Yellowdig is a really wonderful way to sort of listen in on the conversations. I I do very little prompting, like official prompting. I'll post, but I'll post just like any other student, and about the same amount, and I won't pin them in general, things like that. And it's a great place for me to sort of realize, oh, there's this huge buzz about a certain topic thread, and I realize, oh, the students are really interested in that. And if we talk about student-driven learning, or problem-based learning, or the like, it's a really wonderful source for that. And I can take what they're talking about in that class, sometimes reframe it a little bit in a more academic or a more sort of historical way, and be able to give that back. And so there's already a kind of core group of people that I know who are interested in that, and that tends to spread out into the in-person classes as well.
That is incredible. Dr. Howell, what have you seen the difference?
It's really a marvelous change, of becoming less the sort of the drill instructor and becoming more of the participant. And that's the delightful thing about Yellowdig is that you know, as we engage with students through Yellowdig, the students engage with us. You know, we get these threads of almost like conversations. You know, it's the kind of interaction that you would love to do in a face-to-face class, but if you tried to do it to that extent, you wouldn't get any work done. You know, it becomes this, you know, sort of around the clock you know, discussion where people jump in and jump out and they're posting photographs or they're posting, you know, video clips. And all I do is you know, I'll go in and maybe, you know, in based on what I'm seeing, I'll ask a question. Half of the time it's stuff that is of interest to me. And I become one of the students, you know, hey, that's great. Can you tell me more about that? That's fascinating. And I become a participant, not so much an instructor who's handing out grades. I'm right in there with them, making posts and having conversations, and to get back to kind of what Kevin said, learning about them. You know, getting a sense. Online students, they're just names and the occasional photograph on a Canvas page. This way, you actually get to know the students in a way that you wouldn't be able to in any other format.
That's incredible. And it also helps you to understand what your students are interested to learn more in your class and to focus on that. Dr. Jane.
Yeah, so I typically use the default grading in Yellowdig, so I don't have to grade anything. I do like to go in and give accolades and, you know, really highlight some of the things that are super applicable. Like Mark said, I like to ask questions and, you know, push them in different directions, but it's just fun to see where they go. This fall, we're talking about hurricanes in my coastal dynamics class. And so we've had hurricanes out in the Atlantic and Pacific, and they're posting information about what's happening, asking questions, putting up data sources. And I'm learning things too, just like Mark said.
That's incredible. We can learn from each other, and that's the marvelous thing about Yellowdig. So let's go with the next
Just
questions.
to
Have
add,
you seen? Yes,
oh,
Dr. Carr.
I was just going to say, just to add to what Mark and Jane were saying, and certainly the kind of automatic grading is really wonderful. And, you know, you set up the dials in order to think, okay, I want more, I want to them to respond as much as they're starting new threads and that sort of thing. And there's a lot of control about that over you know, multiple iterations. But one of the things I really like is that the students are in control of their grade completely. They know what the system is. It's a sort of completely transparent rubric. They will do it or not, and and so they're in control of part of their grade. And they're my students at least have a lot of anxiety about what their grade will be, or like, do I like them or not, or something like that. And it's not, it's out of my hands in many ways. And I think that's actually a very good thing, because then they can more authentically engage, and they also know that I just need to accumulate this many points each week, and then I'll really have something, and I'll be but and within that I can do my own thing. I can really explore what interests me most, which I think is a powerful tool. And I don't see that in other kind of tools that I can use in class.
I think that's amazing because you're giving them the control of how they are going to get their grade. I mean, it then follows onto them, not so much into you. And that's amazing because they feel that they have this responsibility to interact. And the only thing that you can do to help them get, you know, a little more engaged and motivated is to give the accolades. So that's great. We're going to go next. Have you seen engagement carry over beyond the first week? And have you seen your students create a sense of community and being impacted into build a more than a class, a community of interactions and conversations? This time we'll go first with Dr. Howell.
Oh, certainly. The great thing about Yellowdig is that kind of continuity factor. You know, I've seen over the years. I've been using Yellowdig now for, I guess, 4, maybe going on 5 years. Our school was kind of an early adopter, I guess you could say, and I jumped on pretty quickly to help pilot it. And one of the first things I noticed was this kind of continuity. You know, discussion threads that started in the first couple of weeks of the semester would still be active going into final exam week. You know, students would think of something as they were studying, and they would go back and they would follow the thread, and they could see where people were making particular comments or adding particular information. And it was marvelous to see these conversations grow over the course of 8, 10, 12 weeks. And they would slow down at points, but there would always be interaction. And it was, and a lot of it wasn't academic. That was the nice thing about it. They were these kinds of online friendships that these students had developed. Again, my students are scattered all over the planet, and for them to sort of keep these ongoing conversations active over the course of a couple of months, that was something I had never experienced before, certainly never in a face-to-face class. And the students did it themselves. That was the great thing about it.
That's incredible because they learn how to take it even in the personal part and become friends and create their own community to support each other, not just in the class, but during the whole career. And, have someone there that will be there for you when you need something. That's incredible. Dr. Smith.
So one of the examples I have is in my spring class, the students do a project related to coastal resilience. And so we have a topic tag set up for data resources and questions. And they really jump onto, I found a certain data source, here's where you find it. And, I'm having this issue with my project, and they really jump in and help each other. And carry on that discussion because the project goes the entire semester. And so I think that's been useful. There's other topics that I lay out that are kind of aligned with our coursework as we go through, and those tend to be more focused when we're in that section of the class. But then some event will happen. There's a tsunami somewhere, and they've said, "Oh, we talked about that early on," and they'll bring that topic back up, and then they can not only talk about the damage from the tsunami wave, but also the impact on the community and maybe what coastal measures you would choose to react to it or protect against it. And so it's a way they can sew together all the information we talked about the whole semester by the end.
That's incredible because it's a conversation that keeps on going. It doesn't matter if you move forward to a different topic when it's relevant, you can go back, and that is not something that you can see easily in a discussion board. So, Dr. Carr, it's your turn.
Yeah, so I echo or amplify the peer-to-peer mentoring, which I think is really valuable. I was not sold on that. When I first started hearing people talk about that, I thought, I know more than those students, and so I'll just tell them the right answer or things like that. The hubris of a guy in academia, I suppose. But I've since realized that they listen to each other much in a much more genuine way. They hear each other better often, and like if I have good rubrics, for example, for an assignment, or if there's something that is unclear, they can help each other figure it out, or they can say, "Oh, in class, we talked about this, or have you looked at this resource," and that sort of thing. And I think that's really invaluable. And so, not only are they speaking in Yellowdig in their own terms, like what they want to talk about, they can talk about, but it's also on their own terms. And I think that you have ESL students, you have neuroatypical students, maybe students come from different cultures and the like, and they may not be the student who would ever feel comfortable raising their hand in a big class, or even in a class of say 20 or fewer. And so you hear a lot more voices, and I think and they feel much more heard because someone is bound to say, I really hated going to the museum, and why did you feel that way, or something like that. And then they can sort of talk about what that is or how they might have felt alienated, and that often is a start to them feeling part of that community and feeling part of the discussion.
That is incredible. And it's true because most of the time in class, you just have the go getter that is always raising their hand and participating. But there's a lot of people that are left behind. And that is something that you don't see in Yellowdig because everyone has to participate to earn their points. And it's up to them how they want to do it. So this is incredible. Thank you for sharing that with us. So as we have seen in this fascinating conversation, we have learned 3 ways that Yellowdig helps you improve your course. So if there's one thing you want your colleagues to know about building engagement with Yellowdig, what would it be? Let's go this time first with Dr. Smith.
So I guess the thing I would share is it really gives the students an opportunity to speak up and share their experience and feel like they're, beyond just a student, but they're a leader in the class. And I see them bring up topics that I didn't anticipate, and I can kind of see their thought process and encourage them in the right direction. But more important, I think their classmates do the same. They're saying they felt the same thing, they saw the same thing. Have you looked at this? Have you looked at that? And so, just that ability to let them grow uh, and see them apply what they're learning in class and take it much further.
That's incredible. How about you, Dr. Karen?
I would say, I mean, I think these are all great, great ideas. One thing that I think is important when I introduce Yellowdig each semester is to talk about what the goal is and how it fits into the sort of overall goals of the class. And it's in general, it's not the place where students are going to be learning learning information that's sort of like the kind of things that might be better delivered in lecture or from readings or something like that. And so I talk about input and processing, and it's a really excellent place for processing. And I also really want them to think about, why that kind of sense of belonging and community really matters, and why you're going to have better learning outcomes if you feel like a part of this group. And I think those and just talking through those goals and saying, here's the overall goal of the class, and then here's what Yellowdig does for us that no other tool can do. And I think that that usually goes a long way for them to saying, okay, I understand what this is and I like it.
That's great. Dr. Howell.
Well, the thing I've learned from Yellowdig over the years is that it really serves as kind of a conduit between the students as students in the class, but also within the community as well. I've noticed that my students will turn to Yellowdig for information faster than they will we use Canvas as our delivery system for online content. And they will go to Yellowdig before they go to Canvas because things will show up there faster. What I have started doing is if I want to share, say, a video clip or an article that I think is interesting and I want to share it with the class, I will upload it to Yellowdig before I upload it to Canvas because I know the students will find it on Yellowdig faster because they're on Yellowdig so much. And so it becomes this kind of a pipeline. Just this afternoon, I got a flyer from our advising center that we're having a transfer fair next week, and I made a little blurb and put it on Yellowdig because I know my students will get that information faster and it will stick with them better than the flyer that's posted on the college website. And so that kind of engagement is fascinating. And the students will talk amongst themselves about those kinds of events, those kinds of pieces of information. A lot of the stuff doesn't have anything to do with class. It has to do with them as a community and how they interact. And it's fantastic to just kind of sit off to the side and watch all that happen. And the students love it. And it's kind of their go-to resource for information, not just academic, but communal as well.
That is incredible because that is something that Yellowdig is also trying to impulse to create a community where you can be a part and feel a part of the university life. Because sometimes when you're studying online, you lose this part of feeling the part of your university and enjoying, the life that you get when you're on campus. But giving this opportunity to feel that in Yellowdig, it's amazing. So thank you for sharing that. That is incredible as well.
You know,
So I think that we don't have any questions from our audience. So I don't know if you want to add something additional that you would like to share. So let's go first with Dr. Jane.
I guess the one other thing I would like to share is I'm in the field of engineering and coastal engineering, and I mentioned my students are very passionate about the coast. And there's only so much I can teach in the class, and we focus a lot more on the theoretical side. And so Yellowdig's been a great way for them to tie what they're learning in the class into the real world and understand how their career might use that information and apply it to the real world. So I really like that, and that garners a lot of discussions and debates between the students about what they're seeing in the real world and how things are being applied. And so I like that connection. It allows you to extend the class beyond what you have time to teach in your 3 hours a week.
That is great. And it's true because you have the conversation ongoing 24/7. And if something happens on time, for example, what you were mentioning, if you have a tsunami or a hurricane, it's something that you want to talk at the moment, and you can do that with Yellowdig. So let's go with Dr. Howell.
It's a perfect resource for engaging with students. And as I said earlier, it makes the instructor almost feel like a student as well, because we can take active part. I think in some cases, the students, if it didn't say owner next to my name on the posts that I give, I don't think the students would even recognize me in some cases as being the instructor, because the way they just sort of let their guard down and they talk about a movie they saw, they talk about other experiences they've had that relate to class, something they read, something they see, and they want to share it. And maybe it's the generation they are, that these are students who've grown up around social media, and it's part of their lives. So maybe they feel more comfortable with sharing that way. But the communication is just phenomenal, and it's good communication. In knock on wood, in all the years I've used it, I've never had to stop a student or take students' posts down. The students are kind of self-governing and they self-monitor, and it's really refreshing to see students engage that way, in a way that they wouldn't in class, because I've taught face-to-face classes as well, and you don't get that kind of interaction like you do with Yellowdig.
That is fascinating. It's like they feel that it's a space for them to interact and to share what they are really thinking and learning. So that's incredible. Dr. Carr, how about you?
I just echo what Jane and Mark said in terms of the that sense of community and feeling like they're part of something that they control, that's mostly their space. And I've been thinking a lot about the foundations of what I would consider learning and knowledge and sort of long-term knowledge. And I think, one of the key parts of that is curiosity and almost wonder. I think this is true in the sciences and true, the humanities and social sciences, that I think all of us who are in academics, I hope at some time and hopefully throughout our life, encountered something we thought was amazing. And, we somehow made this like ill-advised decision to study it for the rest of our lives. And, we're pursuing that. And I think we sometimes, sometimes it's hard to bridge that gap. And looking into Yellowdig reminds me of why, when I was 18 years old, I thought something as absurdly esoteric as Japanese pre-modern art was interesting and exciting, and I can see that sort of connections being made. And I think it's and another thing too that I think about is going back to sort of this AI inflected world we live in. It serves a lot of the functions that they might use AI for. They don't understand something, so they Google it or they use AI. They can ask their peers and they get a much better and more interesting response, and they're more part of a community through that. And and when I look at the students in person, oftentimes sitting at the tables, they don't talk, they just pull out their phones or they're looking at the computers or things like that. And I had the advantage when I was a student of being bored and awkward, and so I had to talk to the people around me. They don't have that. They don't have that requirement anymore, and they seem much more ready to do that in Yellowdig. Sometimes even they do in person. But then what they do in Yellowdig sometimes bleeds out. It often bleeds out into the classroom itself, and that feedback loop of sort of making the borders of the classroom softer and sort of reaching out into the world, seeing how what they're learning in the classroom applies and connecting. I think that's really something that Yellowdig does in an excellent way.
That is incredible. And I love that because, it's true, their generation is always on their phone, on their laptops, and if they have they can use that tools to connect, to learn from each other, then we're doing a good thing here. So yeah, I think this is great. I don't know if you have anything else that you would like to share. Um, Otherwise, I think
I'll say one thing. Um,
yes.
one of the great things about Yellowdig is that you can embed video. And I teach, one of the classes I teach at NMC is I teach a film as literature class. And so I'm often trying to find little film clips that I could show the students, that I could just a minute or two that I could upload someplace where they could look at it. And you could do it to Canvas or Blackboard or anywhere like that. But Yellowdig is so efficient. You can take the URL of the clip, embed it right into Yellowdig, and it takes away all of the advertising clutter, all of that kind of extra junk that they attach to YouTube videos. And my students love it because they can click right on the link, they get the video as 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 it was meant to be. There's no advertising, there's no kind of, they're not skipping things. It's right there for them, and it is so easy to use. And that's one thing when I teach film, I embrace Yellowdig even more, because it's like, this is such a great technology to incorporate for that kind of use. And so kudos, thank you for engineering that into the system.
Yeah, this is great because, something that we always get asked about is if this just is for business or maybe for communication or journalism. But this is a technology, it is an app that can be used in every field and it can adapt to your needs. So this is incredible because we have here in our panel today different classes, different colleges, different information that you share with your students and it works for you. So this is amazing for us to share with the audience and with the people that are guessing, should I start using Yellowdig? Is it going good to be good to me, to my students? If it's going to work really to make a difference. So with your experience, this is incredible for us to share with everyone. So thank you again for taking the time to share with us all your knowledge and all your experience. I know that you have done and learned while using Yellowdig. I don't know if Dr. Smith, you want to say something additional.
I would just say the last thing is it's super easy to set up and get started. And the first time I used it, I asked the students several times for feedback, and about halfway through and again at the end of the semester after they had their grades. And universally, they said it was really powerful and so much better than our usual discussion boards. So I think that was great.
Thank you. So, and Dr. Carr, anything final words that you want to share with us?
No, it's great to hear everyone talk and to think every time I talk about Yellowdig, I get new ideas about how to use it in my class and how to use it more effectively. So it's and that flexibility as well as its good solid structure, I think is really something that is inspiring every time.
This has been a great conversation. Again, thank you all for sharing this and for having the time, for giving the time to be here today. So thank you all the people that attended as well our webinar, and we'll see you in another occasion. Thank you again.